The scream that echoed across the cul-de-sac that evening is something I will never forget. It wasn't the playful shout of kids chasing each other in the summer heat. It was my 13-year-old niece collapsing on the sidewalk, her body convulsing as electricity coursed through her tiny frame. An HOA security officer stood over her, holding a bright yellow taser like some badge of authority, barking about trespassing on community property. What that officer didn't realize, and what the entire HOA board was about to learn, in the hardest way possible, was that I'm not just a homeowner they can bully. I am a sitting federal judge with the authority to dismantle their petty empire piece by piece. And after what they did to my niece, I swore I would bring their entire corrupt HOA crashing down around them 2 years ago. I moved into a quiet, gated community in suburban Virginia. My work as a federal judge kept me busy in D.C., and I wanted a place of peace where my family could visit without hassle. My sister and her daughter, my niece Emily, loved to visit on weekends. Emily was bright, cheerful, and adored biking around the neighborhood. She was also my heart. I promised my sister I would always protect her. At first, the HOA seemed harmless enough. They prided themselves on safety and uniformity. The president, a sharp-tongued woman named Karen Whitfield, made a show of patrolling the neighborhood. Like a sheriff without jurisdiction, he sent out letters for lawns being too tall or kids leaving bikes near driveways. Annoying, but manageable. But when they hired their own security officers, men with no real law enforcement background, just hired muscle with matching uniforms, the tone of the neighborhood shifted. They strutted around with radios and utility belts pretending to be police. They weren't sworn officers. They weren't trained. And they certainly weren't supposed to be carrying tasers. It was a Saturday afternoon. Emily had just finished helping me bake cookies, and she asked if she could ride her bike around the neighborhood. The cul-de-sac was quiet, and I told her yes as long as she wore her helmet. I watched from the porch as she pedaled off, her laughter trailing behind her. 10 minutes later, her laughter turned into a scream. I sprinted down the street to see. One of the HOA officers, a stocky man named Brent, standing over Emily, his taser still crackling. She was twitching on the sidewalk, her bike toppled beside her. Her little face was twisted in pain, tears streaming down. "What the hell are you doing?" I roared, running to scoop her up. "She was trespassing on HOA property," Brent said smugly. "These sidewalks are community maintained, and minors have to be supervised." She resisted when I told her to go home. My niece, 13 years. Old, tased for riding her bike. I saw red. "Put that weapon down now." Instead of lowering it, he smirked. "Sir, if you interfere with HOA security business, I'll have to detain you too." That was his last mistake. I carried Emily inside, comforted her until the paramedics arrived, and made sure she was safe. Then I called the actual police. When officers arrived, Brent puffed up his chest, waving his HOA ID like it meant something. "She was non-compliant," he insisted. "We have the right to enforce HOA rules." The police weren't buying it. The sergeant looked at me, recognized my name, and his entire demeanor shifted. "Judge Harrison, we'll handle this." Brent was handcuffed on the spot for assault, with a deadly weapon against a minor. But I knew this wasn't just about one overzealous wannabe cop. This was systemic. The HOA had armed untrained men with tasers and turned them loose on families, and they had hurt my niece. That night, as Emily rested on the couch with ice packs and my sister weeping beside her, I made a promise. I will dismantle this HOA brick by brick. The next week, I began investigating. Being a federal judge, I had access to legal research tools and a deep understanding of regulatory law. What I found was appalling. Unlawful security force. The HOA had hired a private security company not licensed to operate in the state. They falsified paperwork and armed guards with tasers without state authorization. Misuse of funds. HOADS paid by residents were being funneled into personal expenses for President Karen Whitfield, including vacations, spa treatments, and even renovations on her own home. Illegal enforcement. The HOA bylaws had been twisted to claim authority over public sidewalks, property that wasn't even within their jurisdiction. It was corruption, abuse of power, and negligence all rolled into one. I quietly built my case. Witness statements from neighbors, financial records pulled from court filings, testimonies from former HOA board members who had resigned in disgust. When the HOA board realized I was digging, they tried intimidation. Karen herself showed up at my door one evening, flanked by 2 officers. "You're stirring trouble, Judge Harrison," she sneered. "We run this community. You don't like it, you can move." I looked her dead in the eye. "You assaulted my niece. You violated state law. You are about to find yourself facing federal charges," she laughed. "You think your fancy title scares me? This neighborhood is mine?" Oh, how wrong she was. 3 months later, my case against the HOA went to federal court. I recused myself from presiding, of course, but the evidence I compiled was overwhelming. Brent, the taser-happy officer, was charged with aggravated assault. The HOA board faced charges of fraud, misappropriation of funds, and operating an unlicensed security service. Neighbors filled the courtroom, and many testifying about years of harassment, fines for trivial things, threats, even retaliation for speaking out. The judge presiding over the case slammed the gavel harder with every revelation. When the verdict came, it was devastating for the HOA. Brent, sentenced to 2 years in prison. Karen fined heavily and barred from ever serving on any HOA again. The entire HOA dissolved under court order, with a receiver appointed to manage the neighborhood until a lawful association could be formed. The day the HOA office was padlocked. Neighbors threw an impromptu block party. Kids rode their bikes freely. Adults toasted with lemonade and champagne. Emily, still with faint marks from the taser, hugged me tight and whispered, "Thank you, Uncle." I knelt down, tears in my eyes. "No one hurts you and gets away with it, sweetheart. Not while I'm around." And as fireworks lit up the sky that night, I realized something. Justice isn't just what happens in courtrooms. Sometimes justice is making sure a 13-year-old girl can ride her bike without fear in her own neighborhood. The HOA thought they were above the law. They forgot that real law still exists, stand that I was more than ready to wield it. This story is just the beginning. There is so much more ahead. Subscribe to the channel to join me on this journey.